The channel has never been more back. Today, as you can tell by the title, we have got a full video dedicated to Wrexham AFC Transfer news. Today we're going to be looking at the players that have left Wrexham after the retained list was released earlier on this week. We're going to be having a look at the players that have been released, what it means for the club going forward, and we're also going to be reviewing the latest rumours of players that could possibly be joining the club in the upcoming months of the summer transfer window. There's plenty to be talking about in today's video, so if you are looking for the best Wrexham AFC content, I say it every video, this is your hub for general news, general content to come from Wrexham Football Club over the next coming months. Everything will be on this channel. There'll be a lot of content, so if you are looking for that, make sure to get down there and click the red subscribe button. We're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. You've absolutely smashed the support over the past couple of videos, so I cannot thank you enough for that. Let's continue the support and let's continue to keep these videos rolling out to you. And let's get taking a look first at the retained list. So the retained list was released earlier this week, and I think there's two key names and two figures over the past couple of seasons that have been released that are worth talking about. And the first one is Andy Cannon. Now, Cannon, I think on the whole list, is the most notable name to have left, given the impact that he has had on the club over the past 2 or 3 seasons. And it is a shame, I think, for Cannon. I think personnel-wise, he'll be gutted how it ended, and I'm sure the fans will be as well, because he seemed to be a real character in the changing room, and we saw the impact that he did have on the pitch. And I think the way the past 12 months have shaped out for Andy Cannon has just not been the best for him at all. I think it was the beginning of the end when he did suffer that injury away at Mansfield Town, which we'll get talking on in a minute. But I thought that first half of the League One season, obviously last season in League One when we did get promoted, I thought Cannon was absolutely fantastic. He was the first name on the team sheet in that midfield, persistent running, a great engine in the middle of the park, and started adding goals to his game. And, you know, I do think if it wasn't for that injury away at Mansfield, and if he would have continued that form all throughout the League One season, he would have had a part to play in the Championship this year. But again, he was one of the standout performers for his performances in the middle of the park in that League One season and in the League Two season as well. We then saw him suffer a ruptured ACL away at Mansfield Town in early February, which proved to be his final appearance in a Wrexham shirt, which again is really disappointing because he added some real quality into that midfield when we did need it in League Two, got us over the line, and then that first half of the League One campaign, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And as time went on, Cannon was in rehab, recovering from that injury, and you just saw extra additions come into that midfield for us. I think it was always going to be hard for Cannon when he did come back from his injury to jump straight back into the matchday squad and regain his place, and I don't think that ever happened. I think we saw him travel with his squad to 1 or 2 games earlier on in 2026, but we never saw Cannon feature in a Wrexham shirt again. And it is a shame because those performances that we saw over the past 1.5 seasons were absolutely fantastic. But as we've seen through a couple of players in a Wrexham shirt previously, once they suffer quite a serious injury, it is hard for them to regain their place in the side. Like I just said, he did travel with his squad to Blackburn Rovers on New Year's Day and then was loaned out to Burton Albion at the bottom end of League One, where he did become a regular towards the end of his spell at the Brewers, and when fit, I think he's a really good player. A Cannon is a player that could easily play for a top half League One side in the middle of the park. When fully fit, he's absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure he won't be short of offers at all. So we can only thank him for the memories that he's helped us create along the way, especially in League One last season. Absolutely fantastic footballer. Let's hope he can get back to his full self again and get a good move to hopefully a League One side. Talking on Jay Rodriguez next now. Rodriguez's 1.5-year spell at Wrexham has come to an end. His time in North Wales finishes with 2 goals in 26 games. Only one of those goals coming in open play. Obviously, it was a rebound from a penalty, and I would be lying if I was to sit here and say this signing was completely underwhelming. It was, I think it was a waste of money. I do think it was a waste of time as well. And again, it's going to sound harsh to Jay Rodriguez because he did play that role in the running of our promotion to the Championship last year alongside Sam Smith. But unfortunately, I think it was Smith that stole the headlines with his goals. I think, you know, he scored near to double digits since signing in January. And then you look at Jay Rodriguez playing alongside him up front. Scored 2 goals, yes, along the way, a penalty away at Exeter and a rebound from a penalty at home to Stockport County. And yes, you could say Smith wouldn't have got the goals that he did if he wasn't alongside Jay Rodriguez, but I think if you are looking at Rodriguez, he was just way off the pace. He did look way off the pace, especially in League One, and then his comeback in the Championship. I don't think his career at Wrexham was ever going to get going after we saw the first couple of performances in a Wrexham shirt. And it's understandable given his age, and I think the one thing with Jay Rodriguez is, you know, when you look at worse signings under the takeover, you look at some of the ones he made in the National League for maybe a free transfer that were on £2,500–3,000 a week. You have to factor in for Jay Rodriguez that he's made upwards of £2 million since being at Wrexham Football Club in wages. He was on a reported £15,000 to £20,000 a week at Wrexham. And it does raise the question, like I said, does this go go down as the worst bit of business under the takeover of Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. Not to forget as well that we did pay a fee to Burnley for the services of Jay Rodriguez, and then coming in, obviously an experienced player like that who would have been comfortable staying at Burnley. Of course, they were at the top end of the table, but to get a player like Rodriguez's profile in at the time in that January transfer window would have required him to be on a good amount of money, and it looks as if now it probably is going to go down as the worst one under the takeover. I think the thing though with Rodriguez is you can't knock his mentality for a 36-year-old striker to suffer the injury that he did do earlier in the season and then to go in rehab, to work back fully fit, especially like I said at that age, to get reinstated into the squad, make a couple of championship appearances in the final few minutes of the games. I think you can only give him credit for that, for working his fitness back up when most footballers probably would have called it a day, but I think both parties knew that his time was up at Wrexham at the end of the League One season last year. So we wish Rodriguez all the best in the future, but this one just didn't work out for us. Issa Kabore now, it's a bit different to the previous two. We're looking at Cannon and Rodriguez have both left the club after being permanent players, but Issa Kabore was only on loan and he does return to Premier League holders Manchester City. I'm going to miss Kabore in terms of his character and his antics on the pitch. But one thing I think we have learned and sort of understood towards the back end of the championship season is the fact that there are better options out there for probably a fraction of the price that Manchester City will require Wrexham to pay in the summer for right wing back Issa Kabore. You factor in as well buyback clauses, sell-on clauses, which Man City do for all of their youth players when they do ship them off to another club. So I do think it will be the end of Issa Kabore in a Wrexham shirt. Don't get me wrong, I would happily take him as a backup in that right wing back spot, but what I do think we have realised is there are better options out there. I do think we can do a lot better than Issa Kabore in the upcoming transfer window, and there are options out there that we could probably get for cheaper than what Man City are asking for us. But if you are looking at Kabore in the first couple of months since signing for Wrexham, I think his debut away at Norwich City does stand out for us, which again was absolutely exceptional. 2 assists in that game, and I do think we did see some very good signs from Kabore in the opening stages of his Wrexham career. He's everything you want from a wide player in terms of his confidence. He's just so direct and positive going forward, no cutting back, always looking to create. But I do think towards the end of the season he was showing that he is quite a one-dimensional player, and I do think it was becoming easy for fullbacks to defend against Issa Kabore in terms of his playing style, which again I do think it was quite disappointing. You are looking at the mistakes that he did kind of make and his positioning at times. I've seen a lot of people say that's the reason why he's had so many loan spells earlier on and no club wants him on a permanent deal, which I think is quite harsh. But if you are looking at Wrexham's ambitions and where we want to go next season, is Issa Kabore really a starter in that right wing back spot? Is he going to be the player that's going to take us up to the Premier League next season? But I do think if you are looking at statistics wise, and don't get me wrong, football isn't played on statistics, but they do back up the fact that Issa Kabore was such an attacking threat for Wrexham. Looking at his stats, he finished the top assister with 8 assists, 29 successful crosses, 10 big chances created, 38 successful dribbles and 25 chances created overall. Those stats do speak volumes on the type of player Kabore was for Wrexham, and I would love to know your thoughts at home. Would you bring the Burkina Faso right wing back to the club on a permanent transfer, or would you try and get him on another loan spell? I do think he is going to end up leaving Manchester City, but it's a question as to whether Phil Parkinson likes the profile of play that he did see in Issa Kabore over the course of the 25-26 season, and is it enough for him to bring him back into the club and go all out for the right wing back? Speaking on some possible incomings to Wrexham Football Club now, I'm going to butcher this name, Finn Garagusen. Again, I've probably said that wrong, but we're reportedly looking to invest in the young Armenian striker who's currently on the books at Premier League side Sunderland. Now, if the interest is strong from Wrexham's point of view, it won't be easy to acquire his services because there is a lot of interest in the young striker. From his current club Sunderland, they're looking to extend his contract, and from a lot of other clubs. If we are looking at the young striker who's been on the books at the Black Cats from a very early age, and this season has been one of real progression for the young Armenian striker. He's finished top scorer for the under-18s and the under-21s as he scored 13 times across 30 games, and at 18 years old he's shown some really positive signs, and those performances led to a call-up for his native country Armenia, where he did make his professional international debut against Belarus last month in March in a friendly. So I think that does speak volumes again of how well he's done in the youth setup for Sunderland, and why they're looking to keep him on for future years ahead, and why there is so much interest in the young striker. And if we are looking at Wrexham's point of view, I do think it would no doubtedly be an investment for the youth setup. I do think if we were to sign Garagusen, he would go into the youth setup and sort of develop and continue his development there, and if his progression does continue at a fast rate like we've seen at Sunderland over the course of the past 1 or 2 seasons, he'll be involved in the first team in a case of sooner rather than later. But if we are looking at this, it's not going to be straightforward for Wrexham if we do want to sign the young striker. Sunderland have reportedly proposed a new contract to him, but it's unclear what the plan is for the youngster. Now, I would like to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Going forward as a championship club now, as a team that's just missed out on the playoffs, would you like to see Wrexham put more investment into the youth setup to possibly open that pathway of us developing the players in the under-21s, the under-18s, for them to then go into the first team to possibly have a huge resale value in the future? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and let me know your thoughts. Would you like to see Garagusen come to the Reds? Talking next on Enzo Bardelli. Now, I spoke on Bardelli briefly in the last transfer segment of the previous video, and it seems like the Frenchman is a top target for Phil Parkinson in the upcoming summer transfer window. Now, Bardelli is fresh off the back of a really strong season in France at Dunkirk in the second tier of French football. 16 goals and assists caps off his best season to date at the French side. He's had an absolutely fantastic couple of years, but like I said, this year is the one, like previous players, of real progression for him in the league, and it looks as if he wants to challenge himself in a different country, as there's a whole host of clubs monitoring him. St Etienne in France are after him, Wrexham and Hull City of the Championship are after him. We've seen Getafe and Levante over in La Liga have shown interest in him. So there's a whole host of clubs across different countries that are looking to secure his services, which I think says a lot about him and the type of player he is in terms of his style, because we've seen over in France and England and Spain, they're completely different games played and the midfielders are completely different. But if he's attracting interest from clubs in all of these countries, he's clearly doing something right. Looking at Bardelli as a midfielder now, he carries a profile that I don't think Wrexham currently do have in that flat central midfield role now. He does set out for Dunkirk in that central midfield role, like we see with George Dobson, with Matty James, Ben Sheaf, but we're looking at him when the game kicks off and him as a player and his attributes. He operates more as an advanced central midfielder, and we can see that from his goal output last season in League 2, where he did score 9 goals and had that creative side of his game where he did get 6 assists to his name. So bringing a player like that into the club and into the midfield could result in an interesting dynamic between Bardelli and possibly, like I've just said, Ben Sheaf, Matty James, George Dobson, because we do currently set up with, either of those two that I have just named, who are more defensive options, don't really have that goal output to their name. So it would be interesting whether Parky would want to bring Bardelli into the side and operate him how he does play at Dunkirk, with that attacking flair to his game, because obviously we do currently set up with Josh Windass and Nathan Broadhead on the occasion, who again are two very attacking players and have incredible goal scoring records at this level. So it would be a question as to whether what role Phil Parkinson would bring Bardelli into the side to play. So I think it's definitely one to keep your eye on. It's come from a respectable journalist who has good links, so it's one to keep your eye on in the coming weeks at the transfer window. Let me know your thoughts if midfield is a priority for Wrexham in the upcoming transfer window. So that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like as always, and make sure to click the red subscribe button, as we're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. Like I said, I cannot thank you enough for the support you've shown the channel over the past couple of weeks. You've absolutely smashed it. There'll be plenty of content to come out, like I said, over the course of the summer, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure to turn the notification bell on so you're notified every time a video does come out onto the channel. You can be the first one to watch it. But until the next one, take care guys, up the Championship Reds.